All right, welcome back to TEW Impact. We are at week 3 of December, the go home show for Final Resolution. So we are finally getting closer and closer to the end of the year. Um, Kind of gonna start this with some good news and bad news. Good news is I have pretty much the rest of the year off of work, so hopefully I can bang this out and Final Resolution out, get those out by the end of the year. Uh, Bad news is I am probably I think I I don't want to be make this isn't like a concrete decision, I guess, but I think I am ending the videos here, at least regularly. Um, I do have so we have this week we have Final Resolution, and then I have there's the last week of the year for Impact, and I have something special planned. That's something I am probably going to mention once we do Final Resolution, but I think at that point, I'm just going to stop doing the videos at least regularly, or at least weekly. Um, the game is going to continue, but the videos aren't. And I might do like recap videos, but basically I've just kind of lost motivation to make the videos and I just kind of want to play the game. So the game will continue and I might do I'm toying with the idea of doing like monthly videos instead of week by week show videos. Um and maybe do like a monthly recap and then do the pay-per-views, but I'm also toying with another idea that I might just scrap the impact videos completely and do something else. Uh, but I would have to find a mod for that. That's something the idea I'm toying with. But yeah, it's not so much the fact that like I only have like 20 or 30 views per video, which that's not a big deal, and I appreciate everyone who does watch these. And a few of you, at least on Twitter, enjoy these. So I am glad that you're here. It's just that me personally, I was kind of hoping like I would find some sort of motivation to create and like learn how to edit and learn how to do some production and make these videos better and crank them out regularly, and I just don't have that motivation. I just didn't really find the time or the effort to put more into this. So um but yeah, like I just said, I just want to play the game. I'll play the game. I'll keep people posted, hopefully, if you're interested. Again, there's another idea I have in my head that kind of actually lends itself to being uh having a lack of production, if you will. But yeah, I'm just making the videos has gotten in the way of me playing the game. And it's still 2022. We're almost at the end of 2023 in real life. It took me 2 years to play 1 year of a game. Uh, if I didn't ever, put this on YouTube and make the videos, I probably would be much further along. Um, Plus, as you can probably tell, I'm not exactly suited for uh, recording, at least by myself. I have these written out, like I have the booking written out, but most I don't have like speech. I have speeches in my head and like promos in my head, but it's not like I rehearsed this or anything. So, me and my ums and ers getting in the way is, another thing. But enough about that. I'll mention more when we get to final resolution and how I'm going to wrap things up at the end of the year. So let's go to the news. We got quite a bit of it, especially on our end. All right, so our numbers for last week. As you can probably see, we're doing pretty good, but I will go into more detail. Uh, BTI .01 as always. BTI overall rating was a 38, up from 38 from the previous week. Impact TV rating 0.40, up from last week's 0.36. I think 0.36 was what we've been getting the last couple weeks. It was our previous high. Now 0.40 is our new high rating as of, this game. Um so yeah, we are pushing up. We had kind of like stalled out at 0.35 and then we broke through at 0.36 the last couple weeks and now we're at 0.40. So yeah, TV ratings going up. Also for new records, our last week's show's overall rating was 50, up from a 46. That is our highest rated show overall so far in this game. So I know last week I wasn't sure like how well a 50 was. Apparently it was our best show. So uh yeah. Hopefully we can maintain these numbers as we wrap up the year. Attendance was up 328, up from a 302, but if you watch last episode, our 302 was our lowest ever attendance. So at least we're up from that, but up from our lowest attendance is, you know, not, I get a small victory, I guess. Our bigger victories are definitely the higher TV ratings and our overall ratings. As far as Impact goes, um, our big news that I kind of had to take some time to rebook. Our alliance with Pro Wrestling Australia has determined that we have borrowed Aussie Open too much and have blocked us from borrowing them. So, I've borrowed them, I think, almost every week at least for like the last month. I didn't know there was a limit, um, so yeah, I went to go to get them for this week's show, and they told me, you've used them too much and we can't let you have them. So I guess it's more like uh alliance loans are more closer to like once a month or like a couple times a month instead of once a week. Good news is I didn't have to do like a whole lot of rebooking. Honestly, which I will get into more as I go into Impact and Final Resolution. I really only had them planned for this episode of Impact. I didn't really have a spot for them on Final Resolution. But that is something that's more of like a kayfabe explanation, if you will, a storyline explanation of things. As the Super X Cup wraps up at Final Resolution. Um, my original plan, things didn't really change from my original plans. It's just that, hey, we uh, had basically for at least tonight's Impact, the plan was to do a four-way tag match with the tag teams of each team. But since Aussie Open it can't be used again, I had to pivot, and we'll get to that later. But as far as like the overall plans of the World X Cup, they haven't really changed. I just kind of had to make them make a little bit more logical sense in the end. But yeah, I don't know when that limit is up, so yeah. Uh, moving on, I guess. Gil Kim accepted our written contract extension. I think we offered it to her last week, and she just hadn't accepted in time. But she has now. Some other news. We tweaked John Skyler's gimmick. It was getting stale, but it was still great. I think it was like a traditional gimmick, but We just tweaked it a little bit just to stay fresh. Black Truce and Trey Miguel have won the PWG tag team titles against Keith Lee and Carlito. So, um, I didn't really put that in like the PWG news or like the elsewhere news, considering I kind of see them as our guys. But their team that I think they formed it like last month at like last month's big event for PWG. Already winning tag team gold, so good for them. And then Jake something has turned in his month's notice to AAW. I don't remember where else he works, if at all. So I know we don't sign people to exclusive deals. We let people work where they want to work. And if we don't use them, if, we don't use them, they can work on other shows. But Jake something leaving AAW, um, he might end up being just with us. But yeah, I would have to look again. But yeah, like I said, we don't sign people to exclusive deals, unless we really want to nail someone down, which we haven't yet. But yeah, Jake something might just be with us for the time being. American news for WWE. Dana Brooke has left the WWE. Just a contract run out. Um, Wink, wink, there might be something more to this later on. Mark Andrews suffered a dislocated wrist and he will be out for a few weeks. And Lacey Evans gave birth to a baby girl. For AEW, Cash Wheeler suffered a torn tricep, will be out for over a month. Darby Allin signed an exclusive written contract extension. He was still under a handshake deal with Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, so I assume he has a month to wrap that up because in the next news bit, Miro and Chris Statlander, their exclusive written deals have like kicked in. Their outside dates have wrapped up. So Miro has left AIW and Chris Statlander has left AAW and are exclusive with AEW now. And then NWA has hired Ethan Page to a handshake deal. He is on a written deal with AEW and not exclusive, so he can work elsewhere. Plus, AEW has that uh, alliance with NWA, so working out well for them. And then for New Japan Strong, Starboy Charlie has signed an exclusive written contract with New Japan, but he will start in the Strong company for developmental. So I don't know how long that stay usually is, but I assume he's just going to be in Strong for his developmental stay as far until New Japan decides to call him up, and then he'll go to New Japan. So good for him, I guess. Yeah, moving on. I think we are at international international news. All Japan, Mio Shirai signed an exclusive written contract deal. So lots of exclusive written contracts floating around. Uh, all of a sudden, she's retired as a wrestler, but is available as a referee and a road agent. And she has had a handshake deal with Stardom and Tokyo Joshi Pro. So those will have to get wrapped up in due time until her All Japan exclusive deal kicks in, wherever she ends up doing there. DDT, Danshuko Dino, defeated Yuji Hino to win the Extreme Division title for the ninth time. Oh, lots of reigns for Danshoku Dino. And then for Pro Wrestling Australia, Dick to Go has signed a handshake deal. So we could possibly bring him in under our alliance. We just can't bring him in every week like we were doing with Aussie Open. So something to think about. Um, but yeah, we'll just have to use him sparingly if we want to do that. Retirements and Hall of Immortals. No retirements announced, but going into effect. Shane Douglas, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, The Barbarian, Corporal Robinson, Virgil, and Hideki Hosaka all retiring. Their effects or retirements going into effect. And Masato Tanaka going into the Hall of the Immortals. And that should bring us to Before the Impact. Yep. All right, so then we go to Before the Impact. Starts off with the Crusade of Anthony Henry and John Skyler defeating Caleb with a K and Larry with a G in tag team action. Uh, Colby Carino at ringside, kind of cheering his guys on. This was kind of booked as a follow up from last week, where all the members of the Crusade were booked in a four-way against each other. It was Anthony Henry pinning John Skyler for the win. So we had Colby Carino kind of cheering them on from ringside, uh, making sure they coexist as a unit, not, letting any sort of matters divide them, because as Colby would say, like, that's what they want us to be divided, and we have to stand together. And this is basically his attempt to make sure Anthony Henry and John Skyler coexist, and they do. They win. No real issues. I think I might have had Hikuleo at ringside as well. Um, I know his deal with New Japan uh went into effect recently. He's been available, but there's going to come a time where he's not available. I think I looked ahead, and I think he might be available, like, for us for at least the rest of the year, into a little bit into January, but after that it's going to be really tight. And I would assume his New Japan deal would take precedence, so it would probably be really hard for us to use him going forward. Uh but like I said, I'm not too worried about that. He can go there if he wants to. Then afterwards, we go backstage. We get kind of Falaba, Raj Singh, and Mahabali Shera hanging out backstage, chilling out, talking amongst each other. When a disheveled, enlightened Steve comes up between them, and he's basically, his robes are, his face paint is smudged, his robes, covered in dirt and probably grime and other face paint, and basically begging the crew for one last chance. He couldn't perform the miracle that they wanted of him. He couldn't defeat W. Morrissey last week, and couldn't keep his so-called flock together. And Steve just kind of like begging them for one last chance, and they look at each other and like, yeah, all right, we'll give you one last chance. We'll give you one last chance to pick yourself up and walk out of here, because if you don't, we're just gonna beat your ass right now. And Steve just like shocked, like, oh, you're not gonna accept my last chance? And they basically count him down, and he runs away. So they're putting their foot down. They want to have nothing with Enlightened Steve from here on out, and Morrissey's definitely out of the picture. He could not, Steve Morrissey won, and he's doing his own thing now, which we'll probably hear from later on Impact. We go elsewhere backstage into a locker room where Joe Hendry, Nick Stapp CPA, and the Boar are just kind of in the locker room, just all kind of hunched over, sitting on a bench, just dejected. They've been, they got attacked by the Maria KaneLLC crew last week in front of a line of fans, as fans were filtering into the door, and they're just, spirits are low. Even, Joe Hendry has trouble, like, trying to pep everybody up. And when all of a sudden Nick Aldis bursts in and kind of gives them the pep talk that they've been needing, and Nick Aldis kind of reminds them, is like, hey, you've had your troubles with Maria KaneLLC and their crew. I've been having troubles with Mike Bennett. So what I'm proposing, how about the four of us? I will, I want to help you pick yourselves back up and get one over on, Black Taurus, Steve Macklin, Matthew Raywell, and I want to get my hands on Mike Bennett. So how about the four of us take on the four of them at the Final Resolution pre-show? And this kind of helps get, Joe Hendry is getting pepped up, Nick Stapp is getting pepped up, and the Boar is, they've gotten inspired by Nick Aldis's speech and challenge. And so we've got a match set for the pre-show. Uh, and then we get Killer Kelly defeating Quinn McKay in the main event. And I think I have throughout the match, Roxy comes out. Yeah. Because I'm factoring in two different programs here. Roxy comes out and is basically taunting Quinn McKay, but Willow Nightingale eventually comes out and she kind of keeps Roxy at bay, but Willow and Kelly have had their own issues. In the end, it just Killer Kelly ends up tapping out Quinn McKay. Um, Maybe Quinn was distracted by everything happening at ringside, but Killer Kelly taking advantage, getting the tap out victory. I don't know if there's any real shenanigans at ringside afterwards, but um, unless it's like Roxy laughing at Quinn and Killer Kelly, like making sexy eyes at Willow Nightingale. I don't know, but nothing really to blows at least. And then we end the show with Rich Swann, the new digital media champion, title celebration, and he talks about how he came in as a dark horse. He wanted a match against Jauzia, and against all odds, he won and is now the digital media champion. Uh, Conveniently leaving out that Su Young interfered in the match, but he does want to thank Susan for all of her help and guidance in recent weeks and months, leading him to this celebration and to his this new title reign of his. And he goes in for a hug, and Susan just kind of like inching away. The lights go out, the lights come back on, camera trickery again, and Su Young is standing there, and Su Young spits mist into Rich Swann's eyes. Uh, and then the lights go back off again and come back on, and Susan is there. And, Rich Swann is lying down on the mat, blinded and grasping at his eyes. And Susan calls for help and wants someone to help uh, bring water to rinse out his eyes and stuff like that. As the show ends, overall rating of 34, so not too bad for Before the Impact. We did have some backstage incidents, but some good ones because PCO won a video game tournament and boy number one drew funny pictures. So things are going good backstage. Morale is high. I believe morale is at 100. So, yeah, with that out of the way, let's go to Impact. All right, so we're starting off Impact tonight with six-man tag team action, triple impact action, if you will. The Swingers Palace of Johnny Swinger, Alex Zane, and Zicky Dice versus the Myers Learning Tree of Brian Myers, Avery Good, and VSK. A match made last week, well, hinted at least last week when Dylan Postel, the new deputy, if you will, of Myers, Learning Tree, uh, booked a six-man to make sure that Myers and his crew are all on the same page. His trainees got a win on Impact or before the Impact last week, but Myers did not. Swingers Palace also did not get a win last week when they faced Juice Robinson and Power and Finesse. And unfortunately, Swingers Palace do not get a win this week either because Myers and the Learning Tree get the win in a moment reminiscent of last week. Brian Myers going outside for the steel chair, a steel chair that he blasted Jonathan Gresham with last week to get himself intentionally disqualified from his match. The referee seeing this, uh, not, he steps in, he takes the chair and he goes to throw it outside of the ring. But Myers having a backup or a trick up his sleeve, or rather in his tights, he pulls out a chain and wraps it around his fist and clocks Johnny Swinger in the jaw, knocking him out at least long enough to get the 3 count while he puts the chain back in his tights. Brian Myers getting the win for his team. Um, his trainees maybe, you know, maybe wondering why he resorted to such means to get the win, but accepting the win nonetheless. We had definitely have to wonder what is in Myers' head the last couple weeks. He has been using foreign objects, if you will, trying to use a steel chair, now a steel chain, uh, to either get the win or get him, at least get himself disqualified under, over, maybe more capable opponents. But Myers getting the win nonetheless. Segment rating of 37. Myers getting better at his gimmick. So I do want to build Myers back up because he's kind of been wasting away um, in the undercard, in the low undercard. So I have plans for him, not like big plans, but hopefully plans enough to kind of get him back into the swing of things. Um, get him kind of breaking, I wouldn't say necessarily breaking out from the learning tree, but doing something new. That's kind of been what he's been doing all year. So 2023, maybe doing something different with Brian Myers. Yeah, something we'll maybe see in the future. Backstage, we go backstage. We talk about how we've mentioned basically commentary has mentioned over the previous match, talking about how Aussie Open has been held up. Um, they have not they not I wouldn't say have been barred from the country, but travel issues have prevented them from showing up tonight on Impact, and that has caused changes in plans to the World X Cup. And like I mentioned in the pre-show, but I'm mentioning the news, but I'm mentioning now, the original plan was to do an elimination four-way tag this week as the World X Cup match, but that is now being changed. And after that, this is kind of explained in commentary during the previous match. After the match, we go backstage where we kind of overhear Petey Williams talking to TDT in their locker room, and you kind of overhear like Petey talking about, well, did you guys do it? Did you guys did you do what I told you to do? And they're like, yeah, we talked to the airline, we messed with their plans. Aussie Open not going to be available tonight. They're not going to be here tonight, and they're not going to be here in time for final resolution. He's like, great, you know, Team Australia, they were in first place. We handicapped them, hopefully, maybe knocking them out of the tournament. But from what I've heard, I have a meeting with the other team captains to talk about the future of the World X Cup, talking about tonight, talking about final resolution. I got to go to that, but good job, guys. You followed me. You did what I told you to do. And it's great, but, hang on. I'll be back. And he walks out of their locker room. But what he doesn't see is Mike Bailey was standing outside the locker room and he heard all of this. So we basically find out that PD and essentially TDK or TDT uh, are the cause, or at least the storyline cause, of Aussie Open not being here tonight or for final resolution, sending plans into a tailspin. But now we know, and now Mike Bailey knows. But they don't know that Mike Bailey knows. So something might happen later on tonight, and we'll find out because PD does say he has a meeting with D'Lo Brown with the other team captains later tonight. So we'll see how that goes. Segment rating of 27. Um, Losing heat to PD and Bailey storyline, but that's something that'll come up later, probably. We go elsewhere to a promo with the Maria KaneLLC crew. It's Michael Bennett, Matthew Raywalt, Steve Macklin, Black Truce. Robert Evans is there. Maria Kanellis is not, but let's say she did help. But basically, Michael Bennett doing most of the talking about how he heard Nick Aldis recruiting those losers, uh, Joe Hendry, Nick Stapp, The Boar. They he wants to inspire them, and they won a 4-on-4 tag team match at Final Resolution pre-show. So we'll bring it on because you're looking at the elite crew of Impact. We might not have I might not have my wife on my side, but she is, she carries me on. She inspires me from afar, and I inspire these guys. And especially when it comes to taking on all of you losers, it's not going to be a problem. We'll take you on. We'll beat you, no problem. It'll practically be a night off for us. And they were basically accepting the challenge laid out by Nick Aldis earlier tonight on Before the Impact. Segment rating of 36. Advancing storylines. Robert Evans helping out, Macklin and Tarus. Maria Kanellis helping Bennett from afar, I guess. And then we got a interview from Gia Miller interviewing W. Morrissey. Apparently, Gia Miller is poor when trying to improvise dialogue. I don't remember uh, her improvising dialogue, and I do remember like year or like months ago there was one time where she did come off well improvising, but apparently not. Um, I think she's done well sometimes and done poorly others. Regardless, she's interviewing W. Morrissey. She talks about his win over Enlightened Steve uh, last week on Before the Impact, and she basically wants to know what is next. What does the W. Morrissey have planned for 2023? And Morrissey's like, yeah, I admit 2022 was not my year. I came into Impact, at the end of 2021 or so. 2022 started off strong. I was in world title contention, but after that, things just dropped off. I thought joining a group like Maria KaneLLC would help my career, and it only hurt. And Uh, now I just got finished with this whole Enlightened Steve business, and hopefully, I'm done with that group. I want, basically, my point is, I want nothing to do with groups. From here on out, I am doing this on my own. I didn't come, when I was sitting at home over a year ago trying to get clean, trying to kick addictions, trying to, fight my demons. I did it on my own, and I came to Impact, and I'm coming on my own, and I'm coming for the world title. I'm making it clear we're talking about, what's next in 2023. Everybody's like doing their New Year's resolutions. I'm proclaiming it right now, 2023, you will see W. Morrissey as Impact World Champion, and I will have done it on my own, like I should have done this whole time. And yeah, that's basically Morrissey stating his intent for the world title. Segment rating of 27, so not that great, but uh Morrissey putting it out in the open. He's got his sights set to be the Impact World Champion. And then we go elsewhere backstage to the team captains meeting for the World X Cup, and everyone else is there but Petey. Petey eventually walks in. D'Lo's like, "Oh, glad of you to finally join us, Petey. We've been waiting for you, but I just want to talk to you guys. I know with the situation with Aussie Open, not being able to make it to the States, is really screwing us over right now. But we gotta change plans. We gotta pivot. The original plan was an elimination tag team match. Uh, the order of elimination would determine the points that the team gets. But since we're down a tag team, they can't make it. What I'm willing to do, I want to clear it with you guys first. We do lieutenants 4-way. We do a 4-way elimination, but your seconds, your lieutenants, do it in the 4-way, and we just keep everything the same. We just swap out the tag teams with the lieutenants. Is that good with everybody? And basically, they just goes around board, and everyone's just like, "Yep, that's good. Let's move on. Let's regroup. We have the people here that can do it, so let's just do it. Let's move on, and we have our match for the World X Cup later on tonight, or not for the World X Cup, but for this round, uh, a 4-way elimination of the lieutenants of each team, where the order of elimination will determine uh, who gets what points, which we will go over later. Segment rating of 41. Just a segment kind of to get these guys, especially most notably Swerve, on screen because we didn't really have them booked or anything. Otherwise, storyline losing heat, but just something kind of like to cover our asses just to get these guys, again, most notably Swerve, on TV, but also kind of explain, hey, Aussie Open's not here, plans change, we're moving on. So I thought I booked this later on the show, but we're doing it now. Here's our 4-way elimination. The rules of this match, as far as points go, is the order of elimination determines the points. So first eliminated gets no points. Second eliminated gets 1 point. Third eliminated gets 2 points, and the winner of the match gets 3 points for their team. So Willie Mack is the first one eliminated. He's basically eliminated by Jonah. Jonah kind of has his number. In a continuation of last week, Jonah had pinned Willie Mack in, I believe it was last week, where there was their captains and seconds tag team matches, and Jonah had pinned Willie Mack. Jonah pinning Willie Mack here again. So USA favorites in this match, your favorites in the World X Cup, getting no points tonight. But then Jonah is the next eliminated because basically Mike Bailey and Laredo Kid team up to take on Jonah, and they both eliminate Jonah. So Jonah getting 1 point for Team Australia, and then the rest of the match is Mike Bailey versus Laredo Kid. Um, in the end, in somewhat of an upset, Laredo Kid getting the win over Mike Bailey. Um, Mike Bailey looked kind of distracted during the match, which if we remember that he had kind of overheard Petey Williams' plan in the locker room from earlier tonight, maybe that's what had distracted him. Laredo Kid taking advantage and getting the win, so it's it's Laredo Kid getting the win, and it's Willie Mack getting. Oh, actually, just let me bring up the standings. So Willie Mack eliminated first, no points for Team USA. Jonah eliminated second, 1 point for Australia. Mike Bailey eliminated third and last, 2 points for Canada, and Laredo Kid winning 3 points for Mexico. That's good news. Um, not for Team USA. They were at 5 points. They were tied for first. Their tie is broken. Australia getting 1 point, so they bump up to 6 points. But Team Canada getting 2 points now with 4 points total. Team Mexico uh, striking big with 3 points and bumping ahead. So now we have Team Australia in the lead. Team Mexico tied for second, and Team Canada still last, but at least they're on the scoreboard and they're only 1 point away from, the points are still pretty close. So the finals for the World X Cup at Final Resolution aren't set yet. But we will see what they end up being at Final Resolution. And the match overall getting a segment rating of 43. Jonah struggling to keep up with everyone else, which doesn't really make sense, but kind of does since he's like not a lightweight, but that's kind of the point. Head Mike Bailey head and shoulders above everyone else, so Bailey's doing well, but like we said, Mike Bailey maybe distracted of what happened earlier tonight, causing him to get the loss. And probably after like a uh, commercial break or something, we see Mike Bailey coming back from the ring, and D'Lo Brown confronts him or runs into him. He's like, "Oh, hey, Mike, good job out there. You know, you got you got 2 points for Team Canada. That's pretty good. But that I'm kind of shocked that you didn't win at all. That would have been great for Team Canada." And Mike Bailey's like, "Yeah, Team Canada, huh?" And D'Lo's like, "You got something? Is something wrong or something on your mind? You kind of did look distracted out there. Like, what's going on?" And Mike's like, listen. I gotta tell you something, but I can't tell you here. Can we go to your office? I gotta talk to you. It's something important." And D'Lo's like, "Yeah, yeah, no problem. Let's go." And they go off. So Mike Bailey overhearing Petey Williams's plans. Is he snitching out his own team captain to D'Lo Brown? We'll find out, but it's kind of what it looks like. Mike Bailey, has something important to tell D'Lo Brown regarding Team Canada, and Team Canada getting, doing what they could to keep Aussie Open off of the show for whatever reason. Segment rating of 42, so advancing the Mike Bailey and Petey Williams storyline further. We go elsewhere backstage where Savannah Evans and Janai Kai are kind of just like chilling out, walking and talking. They're mostly talking about how they beat up Rosemary last week and, how proud of themselves they were and how they left her laying when, they're walking down the hallway and they stop and they see Rosemary. And Rosemary's kind of blocking their path further. And they're just kind of like, "Oh, do you want some more? Do you want some more of this? So, what we gave you last week? You know, the two of us, the one of you." And we're looking around, like we don't see any backup. But if you want a beating that bad from both of us, we're willing to give it to you, just like we gave it to you last week. And Rosemary's like, "Oh, we have backup." And out from behind her steps Zhao Zia, so the former digital media champion, uh, Rosemary's new backup against Savannah Evans and Janai Kai. And they're just kind of like, "Oh, okay. Well, we'll give you a beatdown, but we won't do it tonight, okay?" And they're just kind of Rosemary's like, "That's fine. How does Final Resolution sound?" And they're just like, "Oh, fine with us. We'll beat you guys down. We can do it in the ring. We do it back here. Doesn't matter. Just not tonight, though. We got other plans." And Rosemary's like, "Yeah, sure you do." And Jazia is like basically being badass next to her. So Rosemary getting a partner in Zhao Zia, and it looks like they'll be facing Savannah Evans and Janai Kai. at Final Resolution, likely on the pre-show. So we'll get into that later. But a segment rating of 30, which I was kind of hoping that would do better. Ignore this because Rosemary's not giving an interview and they don't beat her down, and Xiaozia doesn't come out for the save. So this is basically Rosemary and Xiaozia revealing herself to be Rosemary's, partner, and setting the table later for a match at Final Resolution. And then we go elsewhere backstage where Gia Miller is interviewing Jeff Jarrett. We haven't seen Jeff Jarrett in a couple weeks, and Gia kind of wants to know what he's doing here. Like, she has an idea. We don't have a contract signing this week, but we have a contract amendment this week where Josh Alexander and Christian Cage will be signing the amendments to their contract, adding the stipulations to their previously signed match for Final Resolution. And Jeff Jarrett's like, well, I just wanted to be on hand. If I'm going to be on hand for as the impartial enforcer for that title match at ringside at Final Resolution, I want to be there tonight as an impartial mediator between Josh Alexander and Christian Cage when this contract amending uh, comes through. So I've gone to Impact Management and they have entrusted to me to be on hand and oversee uh, this contract amending. So basically, Josh Alexander and Christian Cage re-signing their contracts. They're just adding the stipulations to their title match at Final Resolution. Segment rating of 30. Uh, Kind of bummed. Gia Miller, I guess, just doesn't keep her end of the bargain regarding stats. But Jeff Jarrett, I was kind of hoping this would do better, considering how over Jarrett is for us, at least in our region. But segment rating 30. But we'll see him later at the contract, quote unquote, amending. And then, uh, after the Knockouts tag team champions, the BFFs, come out to the ring, they're getting ready for their match with Mickie James and a partner of her choosing. Uh, Mickie James comes out, does her entrance, and she takes the microphone and she's like, I could have gotten anybody in that Impact locker room to tag with me, but I'm sure there's plenty of those knockouts that want to get their hands on you and on those tag team titles. But I wanted to throw a curveball. I wanted to bring in someone you wouldn't expect, someone you couldn't have prepared for. And out comes Ashley Sabera, the former Dana Brooke. Dana Brooke, having just left WWE, revealing herself to be Mickie James' partner. Um, Full disclosure, this wasn't the original plan. I screwed up something. The original plan, which I will kind of see how this shakes out, but the original plan was to bring in Taryn Terrell, at least for a one shot. Taryn Terrell having been Mickie James' tag partner in NWA, having held the NWA women's tag team titles. Um, Basically, while Mickie James was not here in Impact, she was tag team champions with Taryn Terrell. So we were going to bring her in as the mystery partner, at least for tonight. Um, but I'm stupid. For some reason, I was thinking I could just sign her in on a local talent deal. I didn't realize local talent meant people without like any form of contract, but Taryn does have an NWA contract. It might just only be a handshake deal, but for some reason I thought she would be available as a local talent. But when I went to the local talent selection, she wasn't there. And This was like the day before Impact, so I couldn't just negotiate a new contract because that would at least take a couple days, and I did not have a couple days. Uh, but when I did go through the local talent list, Dana Brooke was there because she had just left WWE. And apparently, in this game, 90-day non compete clauses don't matter. So we are bringing in Dana Brooke on one shot. We'll see how she does if I decide to bring her in later. This only got a 31. Uh, she's fairly over in the Southeast. I want to see. Well, she didn't really add anything. High morale and a great gimmick for Mickey James. Dana didn't necessarily bring anything, so we'll see what brings she brings to the match. Um, and we gave her a fitness freak because she's all buff and stuff, and she comes in flexing. Initial rating of adequate, swagger gimmick, but doesn't really matter. Again, we're only bringing her in for tonight. At least we'll see how she does. Segment rating of 33. The BFFs retain the Knockouts tag team titles when Chelsea Green cheats to pin Mickey James, illegally using the ropes for leverage. BFFs make defense number 4 of the Impact Knockouts tag team titles. Deanna carrying the match with a 45. Dana with a 32, Mickey with a 31, but Mickey was off her game. Chelsea with a 28. So Dana not doing too bad. We could bring her back if we chose to, if I have plans, but I don't necessarily do. But again, like I mentioned, this wasn't the plan. Uh, we we're only bringing her in for tonight. I could bring her back, but I don't necessarily plan on it. But this was Mickey James's choice for her mystery partner, and they were unsuccessful in becoming the Knockouts tag team titles. BFFs retain yet again. Segment rating of 33, and then they celebrate. Segment rating of 36 post match. So Mickey James, we did. I the original plan when I wanted to bring in Terrell was probably going to eat the pin because I didn't necessarily plan on bringing her back. But I didn't necessarily want to do the same thing to Dana Brooke in case we do decide to bring her back. So Mickey James ate the pin. Um, there's no real storyline to this, but it's just kind of the BFFs doing their best to remain the tag team champions in the face of the likes of Gail Kim and Mickey James getting after them. So this is more of the BFFs getting one over on everyone else than it is any sort of like big debut of Dana Brooke. But we could bring her back. That's always up in the air. She didn't do too bad, so you know. But I don't I don't necessarily want to be the guy that signs all the cast out WWE and AEW talent just yet. So segment ring of 36 for that. And then after the match we get another uh hype video for Jordan Grace. Jordan Grace working out in the gym. The end saying returning soon. She's all healed up from her injury from a couple weeks ago. So we'll see when Jordan Grace comes back, but apparently it's going to be soon, and she's in uh tip top shape. Segment rating 47, so that's really good for us. Like the last week's did very well. So like I said, hype videos don't necessarily do great, but these ones are. So I did another one. Yeah, and we'll see when she comes back. And then we go backstage where we are in mid beatdown. It looks like uh Power and Finesse are double teaming Dalton Castle. Dalton Castle's already laid out and they're pounding on him. Juice Robinson is holding shut a door. So like you see Juice Robinson, he's not in the 2-on-1 attack, but he's kind of like telling them like, yeah, get him, but he's holding like a door shut, and the door like is shaking open and closed, and you kind of see like, feathers popping out of it. So he's holding, you presume that he's holding the boys back so that the boys cannot help their guy Dalton Castle. They can't get power and finesse off him. So it's basically a 3-on-1. But Juice Robinson isn't necessarily putting the boots down. Bay and Hobbs are. And Dalton Castle's laid out, and looks like the strategy is pretty clear for their triple impact championship match. Uh, Take out the main guy and leave it to the boys to pick up the slack, if you will. So not necessarily a bad strategy. So we'll see what happens. Final resolution to crown the first ever Triple Impact champions. It's Dalton Castle and the boys versus Juice Robinson and Power and Finesse. But yeah, with Dalton Castle laid out like this, is he gonna be in any shape? Um, if any eagle-eyed people watching this, I've had Juice Robinson foreshadowing a heel turn. Um, I thought I was gonna have him being turned heel here. Uh, I'm trying to figure out what to do because Juice Robinson is a face. These guys are heels, but I'm not necessarily sold on this trio yet, unless they decide to give them the belts. So he has been acting heelish, but he's not a full blown heel yet. Um, I was debating turning him in a heel here on this 3-on-1 beatdown, but him holding back the boys instead of actually, getting his licks in, kind of like, maybe a somewhat saving grace, even though he's kind of like masterminded this whole thing. Yeah, I'm not decided whether or not I'm going to turn Juice Robinson heel or how I'm going to do it. It's almost like I didn't have much of a plan. But yeah, we'll get there. Segment rating of 30 for that. We get a promo from the Motor City Machine Guns, the current tag team champions, talking about their match against Heath and Rhino, um, improvising well, which I think I did. I did intentionally leave this to have them improvising, but basically they're talking about how they talk about how Heath and Rhino want their respect, and they're just kind of like, well, what does it really matter? Like Rhino, we're all Detroit boys. You've had our respect, Heath. You know, you're still fairly new here, but you guys are, you know, you guys are great. You guys are, I guess you guys are earning our respect. But the fact of the matter is, you guys are facing the best team in Impact history. Look at us. Like, we hold the titles, and look at yourselves. Like Saban, Saban beat Heath a couple weeks ago. Last week, Alex Shelley, like Saban's like, I beat you, Heath, last week, and Shelley's like, I beat Rhino last week. I made him tap out, and that's them separately. That's them facing us separately. Facing us together, they have a less than zero chance of beating the best team in Impact history for the belts. We made these belts. We made this. We made this company. You know, People. All across the world are watching for us. And you guys think you might have our respect, but it, it's just a fact of life. You can't beat us. And I guess we can commend you for trying and wanting to go through with it, but all you're gonna get is embarrassed and beat up, and they're just kind of like, there's just no way you guys can beat us. And that's kind of like where the just the gist of the promo is. The Guns have been, this is their turf, their belts, their company. It's like, you guys have no chance of beating us together. You guys can't beat us separately. What makes you think you can beat us together when we're at our best? So that was their main point. Segment rating 42, so pretty good promo from them. And we get a promo from Chuckie T. This was kind of as Mance Warner and Danhausen make their way out to the ring for their warm up slash uh, beatdown match that Chuckie T wanted. He didn't want them to know who their opponents are. So Chuckie T comes on the Titantron, not the Titantron because it's in WWE, but uh, the video screen, and Chuckie T's like, well, he's taunting Mance Warner here, and he's like, well, I got you, I got you a hell of a team, and I'm gonna be really shocked if you beat these guys. And Mance, Danhausen, you stupid nerds, you guys want to fight? You guys want a so-called warm-up match? Well, you got it. And you got it right now against Ace Austin and Lance Archer. So Ace Austin and Lance Archer come out. This is Chuckie T's pick for their opponents. Segment rating of 45, so just a chance to get Chuckie uh, improvising, masterful job of improvising, having a hot catchphrase. So just getting a chance to get Chuckie T out in front of the crowd and talking. The match gets a 46, which is really good. Uh, but in the end, it's Ace Austin and Lance Archer beating Danhausen and Mance Warner when Ace Austin pins Danhausen with the fold. Mance Warner seemed off his game, but Austin and Archer showing excellent chemistry. Lance Archer carrying the match. Lance Archer with a 58, jeez. Uh, Mance with a 42, Danhausen with a 31, Ace Austin with a 39. So segment rating of 46 for this match. So Chuckie T's plan coming to fruition. He's going into a handicap match, but he's apparently successfully worn these two down by picking Ace Austin and Lance Archer as their opponents and them winning. So Ace and Archer get the win after the match. They're celebrating. They've already laid out Danhausen, but Mance Warner kind of comes in, wants to continue the fight post match. And Ace and Archer are willing to oblige. And Mance gets some shots in, but is eventually overpowered by Ace and Archer until Eddie Edwards runs out, and Eddie basically focusing his attacks directly on Lance Archer. The match made last week for Final Resolution, Eddie Edwards versus Lance Archer. So Eddie Edwards coming out to save Mance and Danhausen, but more so getting his hands on Lance Archer. So basically, he kind of like tosses Ace out of the ring, and then him and Archer, I guess, brawl to the back while people pull them apart. So segment rating of 51 for that, which is very good. And a good setup for their match, which will probably be crazy. And then we get a promo. It's a promo more so of Father Bateman. I have this as a freestyle angle, but imagine this as like more of a promo from Father Bateman. Brody King is standing by him at ringside, or not ringside, but at his side, and they're kind of showing clips of like Brody dominating other people and clips of Jake dominating in his matches, and Father Bateman's talking about how, Brody King is on the path of violence and kind of repeating what Brody had said last week about expunging Jake something's name from history, and that Brody plans on sacrificing Jake something to the gospel of violence, and Jake saying that he is willing to let Brody King pick the stipulation, because if Brody wants to get violent, then Jake can get just as violent. And Father Bateman says, if you two want to get violent, and Brody, he has plans on sacrificing Jake something to the gospel of violence, then there's only one match that will suffice. Brody King and Jake something at Final Resolution in a last rights match. So Brody King and Jake something, last rights match, which is basically a casket match. We're not going to do the thing where the uh, the original Abyss and Sting match where the casket raises to the roof. It's just going to be whoever can get their opponent into the coffin wins. But if Brody wants to sacrifice Jake something and expunge his names from the history books, he will have to bury the legacy, the burgeoning legacy of Jake something before it can even start. So he's ready to do that. He is ready to bury Jake something, ready to put him in a casket and declare last rites. Segment rating of 33 for that. So yeah, Brody King, Jake something, last rites at Final Resolution. And then we go backstage to the locker room, and it's more or less Rhino sitting on the bench, the locker room, just kind of head hung low, head in his hands, and Heath comes up to him and just kind of sees that, Rhino's not feeling the greatest, and he's like, "What's up, buddy? Like, you're looking down. I gotta have, we gotta, we're facing the guns at Final Resolution. You know, I thought you'd be more excited for this, like I am." And Rhino's like, "Yeah, I'm excited, but I'm worried, man. Like, I tapped out last week to Alex Shelley, and I didn't plan on doing that. Normally, I would have tried my best to fight through it, but I tapped out, and that's on me. And man, I don't want to disappoint us. I don't want that to happen at Final Resolution. I don't want to have to be the one. I don't want to be the weak link. I don't want to have to be the one that taps out and screws up your dream of, becoming tag team champions." And Heath kind of like slaps Rhino across the back of the head. It's like, "You cut that shit out right now." And Rhino is just kind of like shocked at, the sudden change in Heath. Heath's normally like the happy-go-lucky type, but Heath is getting pissed at Rhino, and he's like, that kind of talk. I never thought I'd hear that kind of talk from you, man. Like, you being worried. You're getting older. Well, yeah, we're all getting older. I'm getting older. The guns are getting older. We're all getting older. But I believe in us, man. Like, I won that. I won that Call Your Shot Battle Royal for us. And I didn't. I didn't break you out of a brainwashing cult and get us back on track just for you to spot all that bullshit. I won that Call Your Shot Battle Royal for us, so we could be the tag team champions, so we could be the best team in Impact. And you know what? Sure, I could have held, that shots for a whole year. I could have held back for a year. We could have bided our time. I could have waited, you know, the Guns lose the belt to some other team that we can easily beat. But I want to beat the Guns. They say they're the best in tag team, best team in Impact history. I tend to believe them, and I know we can beat them. But I need your head in the game, man. You know, don't think of this as, just Terry. I love you like a brother, man. By Final Resolution, you got to be the goddamn war machine. We got to go in there and we got to take the Guns. And I know we can do it because I believe in us. I believe in me. And more importantly, I believe in you, man. You know, you're like a brother to me, and I love you. Basically, like it's finally getting in. You know, Rhino is just like finally getting in. Like, yeah, finally seeing what Heath has seen this whole time. It's like, yeah, let's do this. We got this. You know, the guns say, if we couldn't beat them separately. How are we going to beat them together? We can beat them together because we're the team. We're the unit. We're stronger together. We can do this. And Rhino's getting pumped up. He's getting pumped up, and it's gonna come to a head at Final Resolution. Can Heath and Rhino beat the best team in Impact history for the tag team titles? The Guns? We'll find out. The segment area 40, so that's pretty decent for that. And I believe we got our main event match, which got a decent number, but kind of bad news. But in a non-title match, the Knockouts champion Bianca Belair having a match. We kind of allude that it's a champion versus champion match, but we don't necessarily acknowledge that Mercedes Martinez. She's still the NWA World's or Women's Champion, but it's not like she can like bring that belt onto TV or whatever. But in a match, mostly for Bianca to prepare herself for Tasha Steelz at Final Resolution. We had non-title match. No, neither title's on the line, but definitely not the Knockouts title. But Bianca Belair defeating Mercedes Martinez. Segment rating of 45. Unfortunately, they don't click, but Mercedes had a 47. Bianca had a 49. So, them not clicking didn't necessarily hurt the match, but maybe it could have been but a little bit better, but that's still pretty decent for what we've been doing. But in the end, it's 1-on-1. Tasha Steelz is at ringside. She doesn't interfere, and there might be times where like Tasha yells in at Mercedes to do something, and Mercedes just kind of like brushes her off and does her own thing, but not really necessarily allowing Tasha to have an effect on the match because Mercedes is the veteran, of all of this. But Bianca Belair going into Final Resolution into a title defense with a victory, with a momentum, pinning Mercedes Martinez cleanly with a KOD. After the match, we get, well, I don't have it here, but we kind of get it where as Bianca's announced the winner and well, I guess still champion again, non-title match, but she uh, extends her hand to Mercedes Martinez. Mercedes kind of looks her up and down, and it looks like she might shake Bianca's hand when Tasha Steelz finally runs in, blasts Bianca from behind, and basically just starts stomping her down into the mat. Uh, Mercedes kind of looks disappointed, uh, but doesn't necessarily like pull Tasha. She does like she's not mad, just disappointed. Like Tasha is obviously taking it upon herself to attack Bianca Belair, but after, a one-on-one match where, Bianca won clean and Mercedes was willing to admit defeat and admit Bianca was the better woman, but Tasha wanting to derail Bianca's momentum and going into that title match. So Mercedes isn't like pulling Tasha Steelz off, but is just kind of disappointed that Tasha's doing this. Uh, no, it's necessarily what Mercedes would have wanted, but again, this is Tasha Steelz' chance to become Knockouts champion, and she's going to take whatever she can take. So she comes in and beats down Bianca Belair. Segment rating of 40 for that. So after our main event match comes our main event segment. We have a table in the ring. Jeff Jarrett is out in the ring with the contract that is to be amended. Uh, Josh Alexander, the challenger, makes his way out. Christian Cage, the world champion, the defending champion, makes his way out, and they sit across from each other. Jeff Jarrett puts the contract in front of them and reminds everyone that, the match, Christian versus Josh 3, if you will, um, for the world title, was the contract was already signed once Josh became number one contender. But since then, further terms have been added to the match. Josh wanted Jeff Jarrett to be the impartial ringside enforcer for this match. And Christian Cage has agreed to those terms as long as if Josh Alexander loses, he cannot challenge for the world title, the Impact World title at all, regardless of who's champion for the entire 2023. Your entire year, Josh cannot challenge for the world title ever again. This is essentially his last chance for another year to be the world champion. And Josh talks about how, you know, he's said this plenty of times. He's talked about how, he wants to carry the banner of Impact. He wants to be Impact's top guy, and he can only do that by being the Impact World Champion. And he was in the same situation earlier this year. He put his entire career on the line to regain the world title. And that's the drive that pushed him to become to win the Impact World Championship, and he's going to do it again. That fear of him possibly never getting another world title shot for at least another year if he fails is not going to allow him to fail. That's going to push him to win, to finally defeat Christian Cage. He's defeated Christian Cage before, and he can do it again. This time it will be for the world title. And he's going to make sure of it. And he re-signs the contract, agreeing to those terms, and he turns it over to Christian Cage. And Christian's like, "That was a hell of a speech, Josh. And I get it. I get it. You want to be the guy. But Christian, I'm the instant classic. I'm the guy here in Impact now, and this belt is proof of it. And, you've beaten me before. Congratulations, beaten you before. Consider this the rubber match. If I win, I'm walking out the world champion, and you're walking out with nothing. You're going to have to go back to your family on Christmas and say Daddy is not champion anymore. You're going to have to tell them you're going to have to find New Year's resolutions, because the one thing that you want, the one thing that supports your family, you can't get anymore. And then maybe they'll look to me as a true father figure to look up to. And of course you can't, and Christian has signed this, I guess, but and then he does a speech, but you can't mention Josh Alexander's family or else he'll go nuts. So Josh gets up, he flips the table, he goes right towards Christian Cage. Christian bails, and Jeff Jarrett steps in between. Christian Cage grabs his title. He goes back to the back. The contract's been signed. Everything's official. But basically, the show ends. Josh's like, "You never mention my family. You never mention my family." And Jeff's like holding Josh back from doing anything. It's like, "Save it. Save it for the match. Save it for the match." And Christian's like retreating to the back. And he's like, "Look at this. Like, look at you two. Impartial my ass." And basically just like everything's just kind of gone to shit as the show ends. So, you know, but Christian getting into Josh's head, doing, the one thing that takes to get into Josh's head, which is mentioning his family, Jeff Jarrett holding Josh back and Christian retreating. And we have our match. Segment rating of 47. We are ending the show with a 47. So not as great as last week. Again, 50 was our peak or rating last week, which was our peak. But I was kind of worried that some of these segments didn't do as good as I'd hoped, but the end of the show definitely picked up the slack. Again, like going from our machine guns promo down and our Grace training montage, for the most part, you know, getting our numbers that we wanted. But yeah, uh, we now can go to the card for Final Resolution. Final Resolution, December 2022, Impact World Championship match. Christian Cage defending against Josh Alexander, special ringside enforcer Jeff Jarrett. But if Alexander loses, he cannot challenge for the world title at all in 2023, regardless of who is the champion. Uh, Knockouts Championship match, Bianca Belair defending against Tasha Steelz. Tag Team Championship match, the Motor City Machine Guns defending versus Heath and Rhino. The World X Cup Finals, matches to be determined. Everything's kind of up in the air due to Aussie Open not being able to make it to the States. So the matches are to be determined, but the point standings leading up to the show, we have Team Canada in the rear with 4 points. Team USA and Team Mexico tied with 5 points, and Team Australia in the front with 6 points. Six-man tag team match to crown the inaugural Triple Impact champions, Dalton Castle and his boys, versus Juice Robinson, Chris Bay, and Will Hobbs. Chris Bay and Will Hobbs, collectively known as Power and Finesse. Will this uh, relationship work out for Juice, and will he finally get one over on Dalton Castle? Their backstage beatdown definitely, has them poised and I don't know, ready to take advantage and maybe become inaugural champions, but we'll see. Eddie Edwards versus Lance Archer with Ace Austin in a match that is sure to go nuts. Handicap match, Mance Warner and Danhausen versus Chuckie T. And a last rights match, Brody King versus Jake Something. And for our pre-show YouTube matches, we got Rosemary and Zhao Zia versus Savannah Evans and Janai Kai. And the Maria KaneLLC group of Mike Bennett, Steve Macklin, Matthew Raywell, and Black Taurus versus Nick Aldis and the True Boar Leavers of Joe Hendry, Nick Stapp, CPA, and The Boar. So that's our final resolution. Hopefully I can pop that one out. Like I said, I have, you know, until the end of the month off, so hopefully I can get that out by then. But yeah, thanks for sticking with these shows and watching them if you're out there. Yeah, come back for Final Resolution. And yeah, I'll see you then. Thanks.